Hi, this is Akshay along with my teammate Rajat. And in today's session, we will be demonstrating the second part of our final project, the Twitter clone engine. So, for this part of the project, we implemented a RESTful service in order to make clients talk to the server. And for the purpose of providing live feeds to all those clients, we have also implemented WebSockets. So before moving on to the demonstration, I would just give a brief overview of this visual here. So on the right side terminal, we will be running the server, and on all these four small terminals, we will be running our client simulators. So for the purpose of demonstrating all the features such as mentions, hashtags, tweets, retweets, we will be using a small script for the purpose of this demo. So let's get to the script. So we basically will start with registering and logging in a few users. Let's say in our case we have four: Susan, Rob, Danny, and Joseph. And later on we will create a few of them followers of few others, and later on we will create some tweets and retweets from these users, and then finally we will print some of the statistics like how many mentions for Joseph and how many tweets are there with this particular hashtag, stuff like that. So let's move on to our demonstration. So let's quickly fire off our server, and at the same time we can fire off all our clients as well. Oops. So the clients might take a little bit more time to boot up. As you can see, the server has already started listening on port 8080. So it's just that we are for this demonstration we are using four users, but then this server, this architecture supports a few hundred thousands. So as you can see already that clients have booted up, and now what you can see now here is each and every client is asking for a username to register it into the system. So let's say we know that we have four users, and which are Susan, Rob, Danny, and Joseph. So let's say this goes for Susan, and it asks me to give a password. I'll just give a password, and then you see a prompt here which asks you, do you want to log in right away? And I would just go ahead and say yes, and then yes. Now what you can see, a couple of things that are important to notice, which first of all, what are the kind of things that you can do after you're logged into the system. And this small piece of log, which basically says that as soon as you are logged in, you have created a WebSocket connections with the server. So this WebSocket will be used to provide live feeds. Moving on to the next user, we have Rob, and then let's give it a password, and then I say yes to login, and then yeah. So we have Danny here. So another password, and yes, login. And last but the least, Joseph. All right, and the password, and yes. So at the same time, what you can see is as and when we are making these login and register requests, the server side of it actually logs all the requests that are hit. So let's move on to next part of our script, which is we create some followings for some of these users. So let's say Susan follows all Rob, Danny, and Joseph. So let's get with Susan. So as we can see, to follow user, you have to select the code 3. So let's say I give 3, and then it asks me to provide the user ID. So I know that user ID for Rob is this, and as you can now you can see that follow route was hit on the server, and at the same time this piece of response from server says that Susan started following user Rob. At the same time, now I know that Susan also follows Danny and Joseph too. All right, so now we know that uh, Rob follows Danny and Joseph. So let's say Rob follows Danny and Joseph. And moving on to Danny, he only follows Joseph. So Danny only follows Joseph. And at last, Joseph, he's kind of a star of the show. He is followed by a lot of people, but he doesn't follow many people. In this case, he doesn't follow anyone at all. So let's now move back to the next part of our demo, which is creating some tweets and retweets and mentions and hashtags. So now we know that Joseph tweets movie night with friends. All right. So let's move on to Joseph's client window. And we know that to make a tweet, you have to select the code one. And then I just paste whatever I copied to the clipboard and I just hit enter. So now we can see the working of WebSockets, how they are actually giving live feeds to the users which are following Joseph. So we knew that Susan, Rob, and Danny, all three of them follow Joseph. So whenever Joseph made some activity, all three of them got notified here. Whereas I also mentioned the tweet number, which will later on help me to retweet. So let's move on to the next part, which is now Danny, after seeing Joseph's tweet, retweets on top of it. This is Danny's window. Uh, for retweet, we have two, and that's where it asks me now, like you have to select the tweet ID, which is one on which I want to make a retweet. And then it asks me, do you want to put any content on it? And yes, I want to. And I mention Joseph and say I am also in. So now Danny retweeted Joseph's tweet. And now you can see Joseph also got a notification due to live WebSockets as a live feed saying user Danny mentioned you in a retweet saying Joseph, I am also in. So let's move on to the next part, which is when Rob tweet mentioning Danny saying COP5615 is fun. So let's move on to Rob's window. And I know it's just a tweet. So I select one and then I paste it and then hit enter. So yes, because Susan follows Rob, Susan gets a notification. User Rob tweeted this tweet. And because Danny is getting mentioned in this, Danny also at the same time gets a notification that Danny was mentioned. Now let's move on to another tweet, which is by Susan. So let's get back to Susan. Susan wants to say that it's vacation mode on. And because nobody follows Susan, so none of the windows you can actually see a live feed coming up. So let's move on to the next part, which is when Danny retweets sounds fun. And Danny wants to retweet on top of what Rob tweeted, right? So when Rob tweeted, Danny got mentioned by Rob, where it says user Rob mentioned you in a tweet number 3. So I know that this is the tweet on top of which I want to uh, make another retweet. So I would say make a retweet, and this is on number 3, and I say this sounds fun. And because Susan follows Danny, it gets Danny retweeted, sounds fun. And also Rob follows Danny, so it also gets the message at the same time. So now we have created all of the tweets all together, let's move on to some statistics. Now I want to see what are all the mentions given by Joseph. All right. So let's go to Joseph's window. And now I want to see all the mentions. So I can see that code 4 is for getting all the mentions. Let's just hit 4 and see what happens. So as you can see here, Joseph was only mentioned in one tweet, which was by Danny, and the tweet content was this. All right. So let's move on to the next one, which is I want to see all the tweets which have got this hashtag saying fun. So I can do it from any client window per se. So I mean, I can let's just randomly select Danny for this, and Danny wants to know all the hashtags by fun. So I would select six, and then I would write the search term, which is fun, the hashtag. And now you can see there are two tweets. One of which was tweeted by Rob saying Danny COP5615 is fun, and then the other one was given by Danny, which says sounds fun, hashtag fun. So also at the same time, the last part of it is going to be uh, how many subscribed tweets does Susan have. So I have to go to Susan's window. So I hit 5, and yes, I can see that Danny has tweeted this, and then uh, Danny has also tweeted this, and then Joseph tweeted this, and then everyone who has tweeted anything is just in the subscription list of Susan.